Oh man, we're back. Peace, brothers and sisters. It's your boy Bleak. Welcome to another installment of Scarecrow's Chamber. Today, we're gonna step back into the gaming realm. And man, oh man, we got a good one for you. I was just thinking about this. I had to get this off my back. Once again, we got to go back to the early 2000s of gaming. Gaming industry, early 2000s. What was wrong with y'all? Why was y'all making so many good games around this time? What the hell? I mean, seriously. I mean, the early 2000s was just on some more shit. Excuse my language. Y'all was on crack. Just good game after good game after good game after good game. But I'm going to focus on one particular gaming company. And when I say the word big, you probably already know what the hell I'm talking about. That's right. EA Sports Big. Labeled was used as a publishing sports brand of sports games published by Electronic Arts that were focused on either casual gameplay or extreme sports. The branding was conceived by Steven, I know I'm gonna butcher his last name, Rockschneifer. Sounds German to me, I don't know. While the word big in the labels indent was performed by the American beatboxer and rapper Razel. I never knew who that was, but it was catchy. Every time you heard the word big, you always knew something good was gonna happen. Nothing but positive vibes after you hit the word big. Big. Let me stop saying that. All the games were released on the concurrent consoles, handheld platforms, or dedicated consoles, but none of the titles ported for professional computers. Big. Let me say it one more time. All right, I'm done. Man, oh man. From the year 2000 to 2008. Once again, what the hell was wrong with the gaming industry at this time? And just to name some games that we got, particularly from EA Sports, big. I said I was going to stop saying it, but I can't. It's catchy. It's addictive. But we got games like, for example, we got games like Def Jam Vendetta. Def Jam Vendetta, for those who haven't played that, shame on you. What the hell are you doing? I mean, Def Jam Vendetta, it was actually I wouldn't say a spinoff, but it was pretty much just a continuation of all of the THQ wrestling games that were made. When you played it, it felt like you were playing No Mercy or WrestleMania 2000 or WCW NWO Revenge. It felt like you were playing those games because the engine was the same. But Def Jam Vendetta, it consisted of all of these well-known rappers, like a DMX, rest in peace, like a Method Man, like a Snoop Dogg, people like that were in these games, and you got to play with all of the rappers, and of course you got to play with all of these other characters too that were created by the developers. But the fact that they got these licenses to put these actual rappers in this wrestling game, this fighting game, because when Fight for New York came out, it turned to more like fighting. I mean, it still had those wrestling elements too, but it was a lot of street fighting and martial arts and stuff like that. But it was just a great game. Vendetta and Fight for New York. I mean, I leaned toward the Fight for New York because I feel like it got better on that time because the game got crazier. Even though it wasn't big at that point by the time Fight for New York came out, it was more just EA games. Challenge everything. It was around that time. Big was kind of going out. But I'm telling you, man, you had the NBA Street. I remember when, like I said, y'all know how much I love basketball. When the NBA Street came out, that was like 2001, man. It was basically just NBA basketball, but blacktop style. Once you played the game, all types of select boogie moves, dunks. I mean, it was extreme. It was kind of like it had an NBA Jam element to it, but it was better because just the atmosphere of the game. That street vibe to it. The urban style of music, hip hop and stuff like that. You got to see all your favorite basketball players, and they also put these made up street legends that they put into the game, like a Stretch Monroe, like a Bonafide, like a Biggie Little. Biggie Little didn't come up to the second game, but NBA Street Volume 2, that was the better one. That was my favorite out of all of the ones that came out. But I'm just to name all the street legends, like Stretch Monroe, like Bonafide, like Drake, like I can't even name all of them. It was like some dude named Biggs, Tekashi, and Dime, and Osmosis, and Whitewater, just all these street legends that they threw into the game while you're playing through the tours and then the world tours and stuff like that, going against all of the NBA teams of that era, and also the street legends and stuff like that. It was just crazy, and what made unique a unique thing in terms of the gameplay in NBA Street. They had these things called game breakers, where you would do like these type of, I don't know, you just activated the game breaker and you can do all of these crazy trick shots all throughout, like depending on what spot on the court you were on. I mean, especially on the second game. The second game added the game breaker two, the game level two game breaker, where you can do all these crazy looking moves and stuff like that on the court, where you can gain additional points and stuff like that. But it was just a great concept to add. And Def Jam was kind of like that as well. Like you had like these blazing moves where you would activate it and you do these hyper crazy ass moves, man. I'm not gonna even just go through what the moves are like, man. But if you haven't played it, you don't mind going back in time, I highly recommend you play that, man. Def Jam was just a great game, man. Just crazy moves and stuff like that. It was hilarious to see to see what some of the moves were like. NBA Street, man, Volume 2 in particular, man, just the soundtrack. The soundtrack, man, you had like, and it wasn't just, soundtracks that were developed for the game. They were real, it was popular music that they put into the game, like Chief Rock, Black Sheep, MC Light, Nelly and the Lunatics, just like people like that. They put popular music into the game. I'm telling you, man, just the atmosphere of those street games, it was crazy. Like NFL Street was another one. I remember when I first got the first NFL Street. I mean, I think they made maybe 3 of them total, or I guess technically 4, because they had this thing called NFL Tour that I never played. But yeah, I played the first one, and I played the other 2. But yeah, man, NFL Street was another one, man. Just hyper football, man. Hyper gameplay, just extreme sports, man. And it had a lot of NBA Street elements to it. I mean, the NFL version was kind of more like a rock. It wasn't as, you still had like the urban settings and stuff like that, but the soundtrack, they had kind of like a lot of rock in there. And then when the second game came out, they kind of mixed it too. They had like the rock, but the hip hop and all that stuff. It was just really fun. And also they had a snowboarding game that I really didn't jump on into later. My boy Money, he had it. It was a game called SSX Tricky, the snowboarding game. They were fun. And it just another thing, man. Just freestyling, hyper gameplay, over the top, just the atmosphere, the color, luster of the games, like just the way that the characters models look, music. It just, the EA Sports big era. It was just so fun, man. So fun. And I actually want to touch on Fight for New York, Def Jam Fight for New York a little bit more. Fight for New York, that personified that era. Even though it wasn't big anymore by the time that came out, but it personified that era of that generation of game for the EA brand. And and for the life of me, I don't know why EA discontinued big. I would never understand why they discontinued it. I don't know, maybe, I guess nothing lasts forever and you got to end it, I guess. But when you look at the stuff that EA has been doing lately, I guess they kind of stepped away from their developing and they're just doing a little bit more publishing. I mean, EA, they've always published games, stuff like that. I mean, early on they were developing too, but now they kind of go into a more publishing route now, because you still see EA's games. Like, for example, when you had Star Wars Battlefront games, EA didn't develop the game, DICE did, but the EA name was there. They published it. So I think EA is kind of going to a route of just publishing. But I remember playing the EA games even back in the early 90s, the NBA Lives and NFL Maddens and stuff like that, and all those other type of crazy games that they had for the Genesis and stuff like that back in those days that were outside of sports games. But EA's always kind of been a brand where it circled around sports. But Fight for New York Def Jam was different, because normally you had your basketballs, you had your footballs, you had your soccers, the FIFAs, and you had your snowboarding games. But Def Jam was very different. It was wrestling, fighting. It was a combination of those two, and that was something that had been done before. That has been done as far as the EA brand was concerned. But I can remember the very first time I played Vendetta, I was hoping they would make a second one, because when you played it, like I said, it played just like the No Mercies and the revenge and stuff like that. When Fight for New York came out, they added a whole different level of gameplay. They kind of went away from the ring and into the street. You had, I mean, 'cause like I said, it was New York, so you had like stages where you were fighting in the subway. And I tell you, every time I get rock, 'cause like I said, I live here in New York now. So every time I get on the subway, I'm always thinking about Fight for New York. I'm always thinking about Fight for New York, especially when you see the intro, cinematic, intro theme, whatever, the video clip that you see when you turn on Fight for New York. You see all the people getting ready to meet for war. And it was always this cutscene where you see, I think it was like Mobb Deep and like David Banner. They just sitting there waiting for the train and stuff like that. And it's just every time I see that clip, I'm always thinking about Fight for New York. Every time I get on the train, every time I think about it. And it was just a cool stage, man. You know, Fight for New York. You had just the subway stage was one of the few stages where you can actually, I guess you could say, kill your opponent. Because when you activated your special and the person, your opponent, their health was completely depleted in the danger zone, they would do these stage finishers. And on the subway, you would pretty much just throw your opponent on the track, and the dude would get ran over by the subway. First time I saw that, I was like, "What the hell? Like he just killed the dude." And it said KO. Nah, man, there ain't no KO. That's a death move. That's a kill move. Get ran over by the subway. That's crazy. That was terrible when I first saw that. And of course, Def Jam had a Fight for New York had both of them actually. They had like these story modes. The first game, Vendetta, you had 4 characters that you would choose from. There were 4 characters that were already developed by the developers. It's not like you created them yourself. They were already programmed into the game. And you pretty much had to fight your way up into the boss of the game, the boss of the game was a guy called D-Mob, who his voice by some of you may know who he is. He was voiced by actor Chris Judge, who is known for these God of War games that's been coming out. But yeah, he was the voice of D-Mob in those Def Jam games. And then in Fight for New York, you got to create your character going into the story mode. So the story mode circled around, it evolved around this character that you created. No more of the characters that were programmed for you. You got to make your own character, and the story circled around him. It evolved around him. And D-Mob in this one, along with the other famous rapper characters like a Method Man, like a Redman, and Ludacris, people like that. Snoop Dogg, he was like the rival. He was the boss of the game in the second one. His character, Snoop Dogg. He went by the name Crow. Like I said, all of the rappers, they had like these names that they would go by in the game. Like Meth was Blaze, Fat Joe was Crack, Redman was Doc, Busta Rhymes was Magic. Not everybody, not all the rappers. Some of the top rappers who had like the most lines, the rappers that you dealt with the most, like a Sticky Fingers. He didn't have his own name, like a made up name, or like a nickname or whatever. But some of the characters did, because like I said, people actually call Method Man Blaze in real life. People actually call Redman Doc. Crow, I don't know about Snoop. I don't know why. Yeah, but I guess that was just for the game. And I guess Magic was just for the game for Busta Rhymes. But people actually call Crack, Fat Joe Crack. So some of them went by their aliases, I guess you will. And just going through that story, it was intense. It was really, really intense, because like your character was on D-Mob's side on the second one, because the second story was basically just a continuation from the first game. But the first game, you defeat D-Mob in the Def Jam arena, I guess you can say. And then the cops come pick him up, throw him in the back of the car, and then the cop car that he's riding in gets hit by somebody else. And then they help D-Mob escape. And it's pretty much your character. Your character helps D-Mob out, and you're pretty much siding with D-Mob. And you're pretty much taking down all of Crow's soldiers all throughout the city and stuff like that. But then there's this point when you turn. You go from a baby face to a heel in the story, if you will, or a good guy to a bad guy. And you start working for Crow. But the only reason why you start working for Crow is because your character has like this love interest in the game. Actually, that you can choose. You can choose your love interest. They had like, I guess, Shauna from the DTP family. They had like Lil' Kim. They had Kimora Lee, Carmen Electra. Yeah, I believe it was them. And you can choose who you want. I can't even remember who I chose originally, but yeah. Snoopy pretty much takes your love interest and he forces you to work for him because how the story was set up is basically D Mob was the head of a clan and Snoop was the head of the clan and how they fought over territory in New York. What they did, they pretty much had all of these fighters and they would have them compete against each other in these urban settings, whether it was in a ring or it was like a street setting, and whoever would and it basically would fight each other. And whoever would lose, they would lose that territory, whether it was like a chop shop or a bar or some type of underground fighting ring. Excuse me. They would fight over territories, kind of like how like they used to do during the dynasty days, like centuries ago. But it was an urban style. It was an urban setting. It was a more modern setting the way they did it, fighting for territory. I mean, basically, you see. I mean, basically, it's the same, no different what gangs do today, fighting over territory. So that's pretty much how the story was set up. And Crow, was the big dog, and he was the big daddy, and you had to side with him for a while in order just to get your love interest back. And the sub boss, I guess you could say, was Sticky Fingers. Sticky Fingers was a very monumental character, instrumental character in the story because he started off with D Mob, but he became jealous of your character. Then he sided with Crow, and then you would meet with him and fight him, and towards the end. And once again, not a KO move, it was a kill move. I mean, you fought him in this building where he would set the entire place on fire, and then you would just throw him in the fire, and he would get crushed by one of the the pieces of lumber and just burn to death. It was crazy. Crow, same thing. When you fought Snoop in his little office, kill move, you threw his ass out the window, and that's how that ended. It was crazy. You had like these stages where you actually killed the opponent, which is crazy. Def Jam, Vendetta, Fight for New York, great. I mean, an extensive roster. Can't even name everybody. But NBA Street, I remember when I first played that. I didn't play it as much. I played Valiant 2 the most. But I remember when I first played, a friend of mine had it, and you pretty much just go through this tour where you're playing all of the famous NBA teams, whether it's the Celtics, whether it's the Lakers, whether it was the Spurs, or Bulls, or whatever. You pretty much go through all these teams. But the funny thing is about it, and while you're going through, because I can't remember, I don't know, was it was a street tour, and then was it a league tour, or did they put them all both together? I can't really remember. Like I said, I don't really remember how the first game was that much, but I remember that you pretty much defeated all the teams, arcade style, defeat all the teams. And I remember Michael Jordan was like the last person you had to go against. He was like, if you want to be the best, you gotta beat the best. I do remember his ass saying that. I remember MJ was like the last person you played against. And then when the second game came out, they put legends into the game, like a Julius Erving, like George Gervin, like Larry Bird and Magic Johnson, and Pistol Pete Maravich, Tiny Archibald, Connie Hawkins. They started adding legendary players, which wasn't done in the first game. And they also had three damn Jordans. They had three Michael Jordans because like by that time Michael Jordan was still playing. He was on the Wizards at that time, I believe. And you had Wizard Jordan, you had 85 Jordan, then you had the mid 90s Jordan, 96 and stuff like that. So you had three damn Jordan along with all the street legends. And then they put like some celebrities in there. They put Nelly and the St. Lunatics in that game. I remember that. They had Just Blaze, famous music producer. Some of you may know who he is. He was in the game. Babito Garcia, who was like a playground legend, or playground legend, stuff like that. I remember watching his tapes called Basics to Boogie. He was really big on handle. Coming from New York, he was really big on ball handling and stuff like that. He was playable in the game. Who else? I think I'm missing somebody else. I think that's it. Yeah, they put some of those celebrities in there, playing with them. It was pretty cool, and going against all the different legends and stuff like that. And just like the first NBA Street, you can create your own character on that one too. But it was actually a little bit better on the second one. I don't know. It's because like when the NBA Street Volume 3 came out, Volume 3 it was solid, but it didn't have what Volume 2 had. I don't know why. I mean, anybody who was a fan of those games around that time, the NBA Street game, 1 and 2 were more similar, and then when the third one came out, it looked different. Like the way the players looked different. Everybody was really short and stocky, and they had like these baggy jerseys and stuff like that. I don't know. Did he? It appeared like they used a different engine for it. But like I said, it still had that. It still had that urban element to it. It still had some, great music to it and stuff like that. It's very colorful. And on that one, on Volume 3, that's crazy. On Volume 3, on the GameCube Nintendo version, they put the Super Mario characters on that one. I do remember that. They put Mario, Luigi, and I think Princess Peach was on there. If I'm not mistaken, they put them in there on the Nintendo version because back in those days, the games were released on all three platforms: Xbox, PlayStation, and your GameCube, your Nintendos, and stuff like that. So, but yeah, I remember on the Nintendo version, they put the Mario characters in there. And what I did like about the feature of Volume 3 is the way every time, because through because of course they had like a little tour that you can do on that game too, where you go through all the teams and all the legends and stuff like that. It was a repeating thing that all three games had. On the third one, I liked how whenever you would play on one of the legendary courts, you would have this narrator who would talk about, the history of not. He would kind of give you like a brief history. It was like it was like a scene right before the game kicked off, and he would give you like this brief history of this legendary court and the big names who were known on that court. For example, if you played at Rupert Park, I think in North Carolina, he would bring up Chris Paul. Chris Paul was from North Carolina. And if you played at a legendary park called the Dome, I think in Baltimore, stuff like that, he would bring up people like Sam Cassell. I believe Sam Cassell was from the Baltimore area. And then when you played, I guess in Rucker Park, they would talk about big names like Julius Erving and stuff like that. It was crazy. I love how they did that. How they would give you like a little brief history and bring up some big names who really became well known on those courts. So that was a good thing. And they also added this feature where you can create your own court. I remember I created my own court. It was called the Taj Mahal. I don't know why I called it that. It was called the Taj Mahal, and I based it in New Jersey. I never knew why I came up with the name of it, but that's just what I called it. Called the Taj Mahal. And then NBA Street Home Court came out. Now this is long after the big years. I mean, it was still kind of a little bit there, but NBA Street Home Court, it kind of, I guess you could say it had a little bit of Volume 3 in there, but it was really, really different in terms of the way, I mean, like I said, the boogie moves looked fine. I mean, the game actually, graphic-wise, it looked really clean. To me, it actually probably was the best because it was the later years. It looked very, very clean, even though the players kind of looked a little more, stocky and something. The way the players looked, and everybody had like baggy jerseys and stuff like that. It was very, very different how the players looked. And the way the Game Breakers looked on that game, and they added this feature where a person would dunk and he would like kind of like do like multiple dunks. You would like hang on the rim and you do like 4 dunks. Like you would score like 4 points just dunking multiple times. And I remember that's how the Game Breakers looked on that game. That game really focused mainly on like the dunking aspect of it. The Game Breakers weren't as good as they were on Volume 2. And I can see Volume 3, I can't really remember that much. I know they had Game Breaker 2, but I can't remember that much because it just, for some reason, out of all of this NBA Street games I played, the one that just set in my memory the most, it was by far Volume 2. It was just something about Volume 2 that really, really kept me on edge, man. And like I said, and Volume 1 was fine, 3 and Home Court. Then, like I said, there were still basketball games. I love basketball, so I'm still gonna play them. But they didn't carry the weight like Volume 2 did. I don't know why. It's just inexplainable, I guess. But yeah, man. NBA Street, NFL Street was another one. NFL Street was had a lot of volume, had a lot of NBA elements to it in terms of the atmosphere, like I said earlier. But what I loved about the NFL games, they were very, very just hard-hitting games, man. Like some of the nastiest stiff arms I've ever seen in my life, man. You stiff arm dude, this man going flying to the other side of the field. It was hilarious. And the way that the Game Breakers looked in the first NFL game, if you activated Game Breaker, and it was unique about football because you had the offense and you had the defense. So if you activated the defense on the Game Breaker on the defensive end, that means if you tackle somebody, it was an automatic fumble. And then when you had activated the Game Breaker on the offensive end, you basically were just untouchable. You couldn't be tackled. You would just break every tackle and you just run through everybody. That's how the Game Breakers worked in the first NFL Street. Then the second game came out, They introduced like these kind of like wall ride moves where your character would like ride the walls because like certain fields had like they were enclosed with cages and walls and stuff like that. So that was a new feature that they added to the second game to avoid tackles and stuff like that. It was kind of like a hurdle instead of a hurdle over somebody. You would ride the wall, so that was pretty cool when they introduced that. And just like the second NBA Street game, NFL Volume Two, they added the Game Breaker 2 feature where it would be like these cutscenes, just like the second basketball game, but on the football game they would add these cutscenes and stuff like that, where your characters would do all this kind of weird stuff on the offensive and the defensive end. That's what made the NFL one unique because the game breakers were different based on the offense and the defense. That's what made the football one very, very unique. I never really got into the soccer street games, but I'm pretty sure they were just as fun for soccer fans out there. Never really got into them. I just wish, man, at that time EA Sports, big. I wish they would have had. I wish they would have had made some boxing games because around that time they had like these the Fight Night boxing games. I mean, they were EA, but Fight Night came out later. It wasn't a part of the big brand. But I wish they came out with some boxing games or the UFC games that you see today. That would have been sweet. But like I said, when it came to the combat, we had Def Jam. That's what we had. And then Def Jam after Fight for New York, they came out with Def Jam. What was it called? Icon. I had that for a little bit. Wasn't the same. But the unique thing about that is that whatever song was playing, the stage moved to the beat. Like you had to use the beat to defeat your opponent. That's the way that game worked. It was crazy. Like you would throw your opponent into, like a part of the stage or something like that to an object, and you would use the left stick or like you would use like the right stick to like it kind of look like you were scratching, like you were DJing and stuff like that. And when you activated, the scratch, it would just blow your opponent away across the screen and stuff like that. That's how you use the music to defeat your opponent. So that was kind of neat. It was kind of different, but at the same time, it took away from a lot of the combat. I mean, there was some combat that was kind of very solid in there, but like I said, it just wasn't the same. It just wasn't the same as Fight for New York. So like I said, you still had some of your famous rappers in there, stuff like that. I can't even remember. I remember T.I. being one of them, and was it Killer Mike and Lil Jon, some other people. I can't remember, but it was like newer rappers and stuff that wasn't in the previous game. But yeah, man, you use the music to defeat your opponent. So I guess EA just at that time, or the developers at that time, just wanted to bring a different concept because since you're putting all these rappers in the game, why not have music be a weapon? So I guess that's what they were thinking, stuff like that. It was cool when you first see it, but it kind of like lost its appeal, at least to me. It lost its appeal after a while. And then I just went back to just stuck with Fight for New York and stuff like that. But yeah, man, EA Sports, big. That was a monumental era in gaming. I will never forget it. EA, as much as you get on my nerves now, I gotta tip my hat for you. I gotta tip my hat to you for the big era. That era will never be forgotten. Anybody who's a gamer knows exactly what the hell I'm talking about. That was just a fun era for gaming. Monumental. And I hope, any younger generation who can, like I said, I say this all the time, any younger generation who can appreciate going back in time and playing some of the older games, I highly recommend you give that era a try, the early 2000s. And it wasn't just EA, it was other different studios. It was Capcom, it was it like Midway? It was just crazy. I don't know what the developers were on during that time, but the early 2000s was just a fun time for gaming. It really, really was. But yeah, let me get up out of here, sign off, y'all. As always, it's your brother Bleak. Thank you for tuning in. Until we meet next time, safe journey.